What is up, everybody? We are back with our Week 6 recap, Part 2. 7 more games to go over in today's video. And we get to go over your Lions, Dad, which is exciting. So I think we're just going to get right into it. Half PPR again. All our numbers and points per game and rankings are all half PPR based. And we're just going to start off with one of the shockers of the week, the 49ers losing to the Browns, who are led by P.J. Walker. Something I heard recently is that the Browns have given up the least amount of yards through the first 5 weeks. I think they were on a bye last week, through 5 weeks, than any team in NFL history, like maybe since the merger. I don't know exactly when they're taking that from, but that shocked me because today's NFL is, obviously caters more towards the offense. So to hear that, this Browns defense is legit. But we'll start off with the 49ers. They had injuries. Both Debo and McCaffrey had injuries. And, we kind of saw Brock Purdy not look good for the first time in his career, really. Did it have to do with the Browns defense? Did it have to do with losing Samuel and McCaffrey in this game? I don't know, but he didn't look that great. Only 125 yards, a touchdown, and an interception. First one this year, I think. McCaffrey, he was able to give you 50 total yards and a touchdown, so he didn't kill you if you had him, but obviously you're expecting McCaffrey to give you 20 plus points. Jordan Mason looked to be the main guy. He had 5 carries, 27 yards, and a touchdown. Elijah Mitchell only 2 carries, but Elijah Mitchell was coming back from an injury, I believe, so it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. Ayuk was fine. Kittle did nothing. 1 catch for a yard. So, Dad, Brock Purdy, are you thinking, is this just one of those games every quarterback has them, or is it concerning because, you lose 2 weapons and Brock Purdy looks human, looks below average? What do you think here?
Yeah, I think the Cleveland defense is obviously very legit. So I think that had a lot to do with it. Good defensive teams, they have ways of exposing. New England's an example of this. We always hear about Belichick taking something away, from a team and stuff like that. Well, Jim Schwartz, the defensive coordinator for Cleveland, is one of those type coaches. So he kind of exposed, the 49ers. And when McCaffrey went out, I don't know if it was the first half or the second half. I know Debo went out kind of early. That kind of exposes them a little bit, So and then you start kind of pushing it, and and Purdy throws an interception, and then McCaffrey goes out. So it's like, well, 49ers should have won that game. The damn rookie kicker from Jake Moody missed 2 field goals. One was a long one, over 50 yards, but the game winner was should be very makeable. And I don't want to hear about the weather and the rain and all that BS. So that was a very makeable kick by an NFL kicker. So
yeah, no, that's 40 yards should be automatic. Just how good kickers and punters are these days.
It's almost extra point.
Yeah, anything under 47 yards really should be kind of automatic. So, it's going to happen every now and then. But yeah, rookie kickers, they always have these problems. I did hear you mentioned Jim Schwartz. I think he's 9-1 against Kyle Shanahan offenses. So he kind of knows how to stop their offense, for whatever reason. Now, again, they did lose 2 guys. So, the McCaffrey thing, it was kind of weird. He got hurt. He actually came back in, played a snap, and then left, and then went to the locker room. He ran to the locker room for whatever that's worth. It's an oblique injury. So just monitor that. I wouldn't be surprised if they are a little cautious with him.
He's had an oblique injury before. I can't remember if it was in Carolina or something or maybe it was last year with the 49ers. So
no, it would have been with Carolina because he hasn't been hurt with the 49ers yet. I think they shut him down the whole year, but again, they weren't really in it, so they're not going to do that. So just monitor that. Yeah, the Elijah Mitchell, Jordan Mason, I think both these guys target on the waiver wire especially if we get news that McCaffrey's going to miss some time. Jordan Mason played 15 snaps and Elijah Mitchell only 2 after the injury. But Elijah Mitchell had a knee injury the last 2 weeks, and that's why he was inactive. And he was the backup before he had that knee injury. So is it just one of those things that, they were going to bring him in slowly anyways, coming back from the knee injury? But Jordan Mason's looked good in the very, very small sample size that we've seen. And Debo with a shoulder injury didn't return after the first quarter. If you have Ayuk or Kittle, that's kind of good news for you, because now usually when one of the guys are out, the other guys all do well. So, it'd be interesting to see. Cleveland side, again, this defense is absolutely legit. Like, think about that when facing Cleveland's offense. Facing Cleveland. Jerome Ford looked good. 17 carries for 84 yards, which was, he kind of carried that team a little bit. Kareem Hunt did get 12 carries himself. In terms of the snaps, Kareem Hunt was getting more playing time. He's cutting into Jerome Ford's playing time. He had 28 snaps compared to Jerome Ford's 38. So we're seeing a little bit more towards Kareem Hunt getting some playing time, but you're still going to start Ford as much as you can. Kareem Hunt did get the touchdown. Amari Cooper, we were worried about him, but he put up 4 catches for 108 yards. So, if you started him, good for you. I don't know, not really a whole lot to get on. I think I really want to see this Browns team with like Deshaun Watson fully back, like what this team looks like, because I think they could be one of the better teams in the
they had Cleveland did have 160 yards rushing, against supposedly, one of the better defenses, 49ers, defensive lines at least, and linebackers, front 7. So, that's something significant. Yeah, if Watson shoulder gets better and he comes back and, he starts to be a little more of a factor, I kind of half-ass watched this game, and, Cleveland's offense didn't look great. As we pointed out, 49ers should have won this game. So, I know all the dog pound boys and girls are all happy that Cleveland won. I would be. A win's a win, man, in the NFL. So,
it just shows you, like, we saw this team with DTR and they just looked terrible. And PJ Walker's not that great, threw 2 interceptions, but he's much better than DTR at this point. So, shows you the value there. So, not much else to really talk about in this game. Again, monitor that Cleveland Browns backfield, because Kareem Hunt is getting more playing time. So, more and more. So, it's going to get close to a 50-50 split there. The next game, the Saints at the Texans. Texans pull it off. I was a little impressed. Again, CJ Stroud keeps impressing. We'll start with the Saints. Derek Carr, this is kind of one of those where the box score lies to you a little bit. He threw for 350 yards, but he did not look very good. Alvin Kamara, he's more of a volume play at this point in his career. He's got 7 catches, so he has a crazy amount of catches. He must have 25 catches in his first 3 weeks or something back, which is crazy. But he used to. There's certain runs that you see him, like, he goes for 12 yards. Those used to be 25-yard runs. Like, they're just not anymore at this point in his career. But he's going to get 19 carries and 5, 6, 7 catches. You're fine with what you're getting from him. No one else in the backfield did anything. Chris Olave, 7 for 96, 10 targets. Michael Thomas is like the most for sure safe bet you can get in fantasy. 5 for 45 every week. Like, he's had 5 catches and like 50, 60 yards. His points per game are 8.6, 9, 8, 7.3, 8.5, 7. So if you need an easy 7, 8 points, throw in Michael Thomas. Dad, anything from this game? Like, do you wish Olave was a little bit more of a focal point, or he has 3 games of like almost over 100 yards this year, so it's not like he's playing terribly.
Yeah, it kind of is what it is. I mean, 10 targets. It's like, I think you're going to get what you're going to get. So he's going to have one of these years. You know, we thought Olave and, you know, Derek Carr, new quarterback, it was going to be like, you know, Devontae Adams and, you know, it was going to be good. But, you know, at the end of the year, we're going to look at all the stats and stuff like that. We're going to say, oh shit, Chris Olave had 90 catches or something like that. And we're going to say, yeah, what's wrong with that? And, you know, we're going to, you know, the impact that he's having, you know, it's kind of, I don't want to say it's small. We'll just call it medium, you know. It's not large or extra large or something like that, but.
Yeah. And to your point, like, you know, Olave is on pace for 1,175 yards, you know, like, which is a really good year. But also it kind of shows you where, like, to be a true difference maker in fantasy football, like, you have to get to that next level, because he's wide receiver 22. You're fine if you have him, but we were drafting him as a top 15 guy. You know, we were hoping he was going to be a top 12 wide receiver. I think he was like wide receiver 12 or 13 being drafted. So hasn't had a huge explosion week. So we need, and again, it's going to come, I think, but you might not be getting the top 15 guy that we were thinking we were going to be drafting. So, yeah, and again, not really much else to talk about from this game. Alvin Kamara is, I can't believe he has another, 13 catches in week 1, 7 this week, I think 4 or 5 last week. It's pretty good stuff. If you got him, you got a little bit of a bargain there for sure. And he's a volume play, but he has the volume. On the Texan side, Stroud continues to look pretty good. I mean, only 200 yards, but just against the Saints defense, like, they're really good defense in my opinion. He had 2 touchdowns. The backfield's concerning. We've had Devin Singletary had 1 less carry and looked better than Dameon Pierce. Devin Singletary outsnapped Dameon Pierce 32-21. And he was in there on third downs, and actually Mike Boone was in there on third down. So are you has the ship sailed on Dameon Pierce, Dad? Like, that's not good stuff. Like,
I think, you know, I think we've consistently had this mediocre just about all year with Dameon Pierce. You know, just going back to Stroud real quick, Stroud only threw 13 passes that were completed. So this was not a huge offensive game for the Texans or the Saints in general, you know, but I don't know. It's if you're expecting more from Pierce, you're probably not going to get it.
No, this is,
you know, if you get 50, 60 yards out of it in a week, you know, that might be good. So,
I mean, I'm at the point of benching him. Like, the only reason he was startable is because the last 2 weeks he had like 20 plus carries, right? And so he was getting at least, all right, he's getting the carries. He's not looking good with them, but he's getting 60, 70 yards, because it's almost impossible to not get that many when you get 20 carries. And if he gets the touchdown, like, I'm happy. And I'm not, especially he's getting out snapped. I'm very concerned about that. So I'd consider benching him. Nico Collins, you know, he had a nice floor game of 4 catches for 80 yards. Dalton Schultz, frustrating player, because I was super in on him heading into the year. I was super in on him, and then he looked like trash the first 3-4 weeks, and now he's tight end 6, and he's looked good the last 3 weeks. So a little frustrating because
he had 7 targets. He led the team in targets there. So
yeah, and that's what I expected from him, kind of going into the year, like 4 for 60 and a touchdown, and potentially being the leading target getter on this team. I will say this: a lot of his production has come since Tank Dell got hurt last week. So something to monitor if Tank Dell comes back, because it doesn't affect Dalton Schultz. But yeah, we'll kind of move on from this game, and we're getting into the Patriots at the Raiders.
Jeez,
another
trash game.
A lot of them. I mean, the over/unders kind of reflected that coming into the week too. Mac Jones, 24 for 33, 200 yards, no touchdowns, no interception. Ramondre Stevenson, I said, if you're going to start him this is the last week to start him. You got paid off if you did. I mean, he had 46 yards and a touchdown. He had 5 catches and 24 yards. So, you're looking at 70 total yards, a touchdown with 5 catches. You'll take that all day. I think that was about 15 half PPR points. He did leave the game as well, so he would have had even more. I think he missed about a quarter of play, but he did come back. So that's good to see. So I'm excited about Ramondre. He had a brutal start to the season in terms of run defenses, and I think if you're going to get some more games like this, a good stretch of games here for him. Dad, what about Kendrick Bourne? 10 catches, 89 yards, 11 targets. Like, would you consider, with all the injuries and buys this week, would you consider starting him or picking him up?
He had I think it was week 1. He had a really good game also. It's kind of, it's not consistent that you're going to get this, but he obviously gets a lot of attention in the stinky, New England offense. So, like I say, somebody's got to catch the ball. Somebody's got to friggin' run the ball. So, if you're looking for somebody, like you said, you've identified a big bye week coming up, and if Kendrick Bourne's there, I wouldn't, it could be worse. You're talking about a team's wide receiver 1, pretty much. So,
yeah. You mentioned the week 1, and that's I guess one reason to be concerned. He had 21.5 points week 1, and then disappeared for 4 weeks essentially, and came back with this 14.5 points. So I guess that's one thing to be concerned about. It's like, well, what happened weeks 2 through 5? What was going on there? Yeah, I think he's definitely worth an ad, though. So, we'll move on to the Raiders. Jimmy G left the game. I think he went to the hospital. So he might miss some time. Brian Hoyer took over, not Aiden O'Connell, which is probably for the better. Hoyer looked fine. Josh Jacobs, again, he's just a volume play at this point. He's not very efficient, but you can't ignore 25 carries. Didn't really pay off this week, but it will most weeks if you're going to get 25 carries. Devontae Adams, I think, is still kind of dealing with this shoulder injury. Only 5 targets, 2 catches, 29 yards. Hopefully he gets healthy and it's not super serious. Jacoby Myers is really, really good. Again, if you drafted Jacoby Myers, you're super excited. He's wide receiver 13 on the year, and that's with even missing a game. So that's pretty amazing. Michael Mayer, do you think this is a rookie tight end, Dad, coming on now? 5 catches for 75 yards. They talked about they wanted to get him involved a little bit more, and he's been involved more the last 2 weeks. Are you intrigued by this and going to keep an eye out once you pick him up?
Absolutely. A little bit of a breakout. We always talk about it takes a little while sometimes for rookies, receivers, tight ends, or running backs, to get into to learn their offense and really be a part. And we see now maybe we're seeing it with Michael Mayer. He's kind of a big boy too, so he looked, a couple of receptions I seen, he looked pretty good.
Yeah, he had a couple nice runs and things like that. It's rookies always tend to come on later on, so I think he could be a nice piece to that offense. So, and Josh McDaniels, think about him in New England and Gronk and stuff like that. So keep an eye on that. If you need a tight end, Michael Mayer could be the guy. But yeah, not really else much to talk about in this game. Nothing exciting. And so we'll get on to, Dad, your team, the Lions at the Bucs. Tell me what you're most excited about with the Lions, besides them being 5-1 for the first time in a decade or whatever.
Well, I think overall as a team, this is a game they could have easily lost. Going on the road, Buccaneers are a little better team than everybody thinks. I think the Buccaneers offensive line and defensive line looks pretty good, but the Lions defense kind of slapping them around a little bit, and so I'm just happy they've, it's so hard in the NFL. We see so many times where teams lose games. They do something stupid or mistakes are made, and the Lions they're not doing that. So, Jesus criminy, I hear, Lions are Super Bowl, blah, blah, blah. No, I don't think they're quite to that level. You still got the 49ers and all that. Great game for Jared Goff. I know in the review podcast, it was talked about, Jared Goff's not so good on the road. Well, Jared Goff won that game for the Detroit Lions yesterday. So they lost their best running back, David Montgomery. That's kind of their bread and butter. That's Jared Goff's bread and butter, play action passing. And the run game was not there. And Jared Goff had to throw the ball, I think, 44 times. And it turned out pretty damn good.
Yeah. It was an impressive win coming on the road against a team coming off a bye, being beat up, as the Lions are. And I kind of disagree with you, Dad. I think they are on the short list of teams, Super Bowl contenders as of now, October 16th, I put them on that list. So their defense is legit. That's the biggest thing is the defense is legit. They have one of the best offensive lines in the NFL, and they're winning these games that I think, Tampa Bay, a lot of people don't think they're that great of a team. They're 3-2, whatever, 3-1 coming into this game. But, we talked about how when you're beat up and how close teams are really in the NFL, and looking at the 49ers or the Eagles or the Bills almost losing, this was a game that they could have easily lost, and they would have lost in years past. So, I don't know. I think it's impressive, and they kind of just wear you down and kind of impose their will late in the third, fourth quarter. That's kind of how the Lions play. They did that to the Packers, and then they did that in this game. So, yeah, Goff was good. I think he's kind of a no-brainer start at this point unless you have someone better. You mentioned it, Montgomery. You also mentioned he's probably going to miss some time, which is unfortunate because he's been so good. Craig Reynolds, I guess, would be the guy to pick up if he is hurt. Jahmyr Gibbs hopefully comes back as well. St. Brown is Amon-Ra St. Brown, 12 for 124 and a touchdown. Dude's
outstanding, awesome. Yes.
Jameson Williams showed up, made a big catch, a 45-yard touchdown. Good to see that. Let's hope he can do that. That adds another layer to this team. Josh Reynolds kind of does what he does, 3 to 4 catches, 50 to 60 yards, which is what he did. Laporta had a little bit of a quiet game, but still good for a tight end. 11 targets, by the way, so it just didn't, for whatever reason, only caught 4 passes. So, yeah, I mean, you're obviously starting St. Brown. Keep Jameson Williams on your team, and just if he gets a little bit more playing time and he can add this kind of dimension to their offense, it's going to be, really, really good for them. So they kind of need him. They don't need him, but they could really, really use him. So only played in 23% of the snaps, by the way. So let's hope he starts to get some more. Anything else you want to say about the Lions, Dad? Craig Reynolds is the guy to pick up, right? I mean,
I think so. That's just, we'll see what happens. Waiver wire, trade deadline and things like that for the Lions. But right now, the way it stands, yes. I could talk for 30 or 40 minutes about the Lions, but we need to move on.
Yeah, no. impressive team for sure. So we will see as they move along. The Bucs, just kind of got a little bit of like the Baker Mayfield of old here. Just not very good this game. No one started him, so it's not a big deal. Rashad White, he dominated the snaps, but he did not dominate the carries. He only had 7 carries. Keyshawn Vaughn had 6, but Rashad White played 44% or 44 snaps compared to 12 for Keyshawn Vaughn. So I don't know. I'm not very high on Rashad White. They're not really throwing him the ball that much. He did have 3 catches, but I don't know. I would kind of avoid playing him if I could. Mike Evans down game 4 for 49, Godwin 6 for 77. I kind of said this, it feels like both those guys can't hit. I don't know. Well, what are you thinking with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Dad? Are you just not a whole lot to be excited about? I feel like.
Yeah, I think 11. I think didn't Mike Evans get 10 or 11 targets?
Yeah, he had 10 targets.
He dropped a couple balls, I thought, and I don't know if it was his fault or where the pass location was, but if you watch this game, I know a lot of people didn't watch this game, but Baker Mayfield missed 2 very long passes to Trey Palmer, who was kind of open. One time he was legitimately open. It would have been, 60, 70-yard touchdown pass and stuff like that. So, all he had to do was throw the ball in there, and, it would have been big play. The game would have tied, would have been tied. This is in the second period. So, Trey Palmer looks pretty good. They're just not getting the ball to him a lot. Yep.
It's the rookie receiver there. So, yeah, I'd avoid Rashad White as much as possible. He needs to be a volume. He's a volume play, and he's not getting the volume. So,
well, the one counter to that is who in the hell else is going to play on Tampa Bay? So, that's the only thing. But if you're looking for results, don't be disappointed if you get half-ass ones.
Yeah. And then Evans and Godwin, you're probably just going to keep playing, at least Evans from what we saw. So Cardinals, Rams are up next. Cardinals, nice story. The clock might be striking midnight a little bit. Like they had a good September, surprised some people, but they're not a good team. Like they just aren't. Josh Dobbs, I'll say this, he's still potential streamer at quarterback because he's going to run the ball. Like he ran for almost 50 yards again. And even when you have a kind of a poor performance, like if you throw a touchdown, you give him 17, 18 points with that. So everyone's darling Amari DiMercato, which a lot of people probably spent a lot of money on. Well, guess what? He had 2 carries. It was Keontae Ingram and Damian Williams. Damian Williams didn't even know he was still in the NFL, to be honest.
I was shocked too. I seen the name and I went, what the hell, I know. Speaking of spending a lot of money, I'm in a dynasty league. I think what did I tell you? A guy spent $750 of fab money on
75%.
back. Yeah, nice move, X-Lax.
Yeah. It was basically a three back committee. DiMercato did get the most snaps, and then Keontae Ingram, Damian Williams. But Damian Williams had 8 carries, Keontae Ingram 10, and like I said, DiMercato only 2. So yeah, just avoid that whole situation while Connor's out. Just really not much. Marquise Brown, don't worry. He only had 4 for 34. He still had 11 targets. Like he's still being heavily targeted. Josh Dobbs missed him on a couple.
He's going to get traded.
Throws. He probably, I hope he does. He's a good player. Like he is. I know no one gets super excited about Marquise Brown, but like the last couple of years, he's proven he's not, his beginning of his career, he was kind of that deep threat for Lamar. last year he was a volume guy. This year he's been a volume guy. Like, he's wide receiver 15 on the year. He had 4 straight weeks of 14 or more half PPR points. So, and he still had 11 targets this week. So don't be worried about Marquise Brown. Just keep starting him. No one else to talk about. Michael Wilson, 3 for 62, but you're not going to get much consistency. Trey McBride did get 4 catches for 62 yards. Kind of wish they would get him more involved than Zach Ertz, but I don't really know if they're going to do that. So avoid the backfield. Keep starting Marquise Brown. That's about it for this team. The Rams, Kyron Williams, 20 for 158 and a touchdown. Like, holy crap. Did not expect that. I was kind of worried about Kyron Williams because if you looked at where he was getting a lot of his points, it was in touchdowns and heavy catch games, and he hasn't really been used in the passing game since Cooper Kupp's come back. So didn't even have a target in this game. But yeah, if you get 20 carries, you're going to keep firing him up. Although he did get hurt. I think he has an ankle injury. I think he's one of the injuries. I think I read that. He had an ankle injury in the game. So keep an eye on that. There's 2 guys, Ronnie Rivers and Zach Evans, who's a rookie. Who I think I'd be a little more interested actually in Zach Evans if Kyron Williams is going to get, he's going to miss some time if he does. So, Cooper Kupp had a huge game, 7 for 150 and a touchdown. Puka, only 4 for 26. I'm not worried about Puka really. Like, he still had 7 targets. Just not as prolific. I thought Matthew Stafford was going to have a huge passing game. Only threw the ball 24 times. Completed 15 passes. So anything you want to say on this game, Dad?
No, this was kind of a little bit of a slow moving game, as far as the Rams kind of took over in the second half. And I don't know, is this the start of Puka starting to get a reduction? In targets. I don't think so. I think it's just the way this game kind of the Rams were running the ball a lot and stuff like that. So I think there's still enough for Kupp and Puka Nacua, fantasy wise, to keep starting those guys.
Yeah. It is going to be in a reduction in the sense of like he had 15 and 20 the first 2 weeks. So yeah, he's not going to be getting those ever while Cooper Kupp's out there. But no, I'm not too worried. Like, so you look at last week, Cooper Kupp came back. Stafford threw the ball 37 times. Puka had 11 targets. So quick math says that's just under about 30% of the target share. This game, Stafford only threw it 24 times. Puka had 7 targets. So he's still getting just right around that 30% target share. So like I said, it's just a case of they didn't really throw the ball. Didn't really have to. So not really worried about Puka. His ceiling is going to be capped a little bit with Cooper Kupp there, but he's still going to be a very start-worthy player. So we'll move on to another shocker in the Eagles at the Jets. Jets knock off the Eagles. Another game where Eagles probably should have won this game, but I liked what Robert Saleh said. Like, they played a gauntlet of quarterbacks, and they haven't won every game, but they've embarrassed all the quarterbacks they've played, and he's kind of
I heard that.
They've shut down every quarterback, and they've played Josh Allen, Dak Prescott, Mac Jones, whatever, Patrick Mahomes, Russell Wilson, and Jalen Hurts. So they played 4 really, really elite quarterbacks, and they've probably had their worst games, each of those quarterbacks, of the year against the Jets. So in terms of fantasy, Eagles, Hurts didn't look good. He still had a good fantasy game because he ran for 50 yards and a touchdown. DeAndre Swift had 8 catches for 40 yards. Again, there's not much to talk about the Eagles. I guess the only thing to talk about is, are you a little bit worried about Devontae Smith? He hasn't really been producing. He's had 3 of the last 4 games of under 7 points in half PPR. Are you worried about that, or do you think he's just going to get his eventually?
I'm not going to call it worried. Maybe I'll call it concerned. I'm not sure what's going on with is it an offense problem? Is it a combination of Devontae Smith, Jalen Hurts? I don't know. The offense hasn't been as prolific running the ball, I think, as we've seen in the past. I mean, they did play the Jets yesterday, which is, good defense and stuff like that. So, you still got to roll. Devontae Smith has got, he's still he's got to be one of your guys, Like you said, friggin' Eagles should have won the game, and he threw an interception, pick six there late in the game, and it's kind of game over after that,
Yeah, no, you're totally right. So, but again, like he did have 11 targets, so I'm not too worried about him. And everyone else, you're going to start Goddard, AJ Brown, Swift. You're starting all these guys on the Jets side. Zach Wilson didn't make a mistake in terms of a turnover, so that's the key there. Breece Hall was pretty good. He had 5 catches. Looks like 90 total yards, over 90 total yards and a touchdown. You're happy with that. Garrett Wilson, 12 targets. If they're in a game where they're going to throw the ball, like it's all dependent on how many times they throw the ball, because Garrett Wilson's going to get 35% of the targets. That's what we're seeing. If they throw the ball 20 times, well, Garrett Wilson's only going to get 7 targets. If they throw the ball 33 times like they did today, Garrett Wilson's going to get 12 targets, and he's going to put up a pretty good game because of it. 8 for 90. You're happy with that. And now we look at Garrett Wilson, and we were kind of like all freaking out, and he's going to suck. He's wide receiver 20 on the year. He's had 4 of the 6 games in double-digit points. So of course you drafted him to be a top 5 guy potentially, but that's not going to happen with Zach Wilson. But if you can get this here, you're totally fine. So, there's not really you're starting Breece Hall and Garrett Wilson. That's really all it is with the Jets. Anything
Bingo.
else?
That's right. Yeah. Those and the rest of the guys are, just another guy. So Lazard and Dalvin Cook and Cobb and Uzama and Michael Carter and Mecole Hardman. So
if you're able to somehow get Breece Hall at a cheap price, if you can sell the fact he's on the Jets, do it. He's running back 15 on the year. He's had 27 points in last week, 18 points this week. Here's his schedule. He gets the Giants, he gets the Chargers, and he gets the Raiders the next 3 weeks. And he gets the Bills, who are kind of beat up on defense, and then the Dolphins. So he's going to go off. He might be winning fantasy leagues the next 5-6 weeks. So if you can somehow get him, do it. Last game for you guys, the Giants at the Bills, another surprising game. In terms of the Giants almost had a chance to win, with Tyrod Taylor at the helm. Barkley looked really good. 24 carries, 93 yards, 4 catches, only 5 yards, but he looked good, coming off the injury. You're going to fire him up no matter what. Wan'Dale is interesting because, again, 8 catches for 62 yards, hard to ignore that. He could just be a nice little volume play in PPR. Darren Waller, 543. I don't know. We just basically, who's the only startable? Who are the startable players each week? You're not even thinking about it for the Giants, Dad. Is it Saquon and no one else?
Saquon and maybe Waller, just because he's in a tight end. He's a tight end, but expect some down weeks. This game was kind of lost at halftime, where he screwed up. That I think there was a bunch of times. There was at least twice at the end of the game and right before the half that the Giants were right there, and then they came away with nothing, So
Yeah.
should have won. Could have won the game. We talk about teams losing games instead of winning games. This is an example. The Giants lost that game because they basically screwed up.
Yeah.
A couple times.
Yeah. They did have a bit of a gauntlet of games to start the year. Same with the Jets. We talked about it talking about the Jets. Like, even this was before Aaron Rodgers got hurt. Like, if they can go like 500 over their first 6 weeks, and that's what they are. Giants, they do get the Commanders, Jets, Raiders, Commanders again, Patriots, Packers. So you get some potential winnable games here, but I think it's Saquon and Waller, and that's kind of it. I would add Wandale. Bill's side, not much to talk about here. Like, bad game for Josh Allen. James Cook was good running the ball, but he didn't catch a pass, and he didn't score a touchdown. So you're going to need one of those other things to kind of happen for him. Stephon Diggs is Stephon Diggs. Just the whole offense was not very good. So I think, to me, you just throw it out the window and you keep starting those guys. So anything else you want to say, Dad? Do you think you have a handle on this NFL season now? Week 6 weeks in?
Yeah, kind of, we've seen some surprises. Now, there was at least a half a dozen injuries, man, right from the get-go, that could affect the season NFL-wise, and they're definitely going to affect fantasy-wise. So, one of them's a right tackle for the Eagles, Lane Johnson. So that's going to affect the team. So it's going to affect the fantasy output of Hurts and crew. So just pay attention, overall what's going on, and set your lineups. Run your waivers and do the best you can. Put your best lineup in there and what you think it is.
Yep, and keep going, even if you're 2-4 or whatever. Like, you never know what can happen. So, but yeah, we're going to finish up there, and we'll be back with the preview video later on the week. And good luck if you have some Cowboys Chargers tonight. So I'm sure there's some fantasy games still up in the air. So good luck with that. And we will catch you guys all next